So if you're really looking to get better, like significantly better at what you do, your job, your craft, there's this central kind of uncomfortable truth we found in the original essay we looked at. It boils down to this. You just can't have both comfort and real growth. They're like oil and water. And every single day, you're basically forced to choose between them.
Yeah, it's presented as a really stark choice, isn't it? But we spend so much energy trying to find some cozy middle ground that, well, the essay argues just doesn't exist. And we fall into this trap almost immediately. It's super common. Confusing motion for actual progress.
Ah, that's a great distinction. Motion versus progress. Looking busy, right? You're generating lots of activity, emails flying, meetings, but not actually, moving the needle on the hard stuff.
Exactly, not tackling the high-leverage tasks. And the original essay kicks off with this perfect little story about someone named Sarah. She had 3 brilliant ideas for a presentation. Genuinely game-changing stuff, but also risky. The kind that might get shut down.
Okay, so what happened? Did you go for it?
No. Instead of wrestling with those high-stakes ideas, she spent her whole day on safe stuff, sending out those low-risk, just checking in emails, updating people on things that weren't urgent.
Oh, I recognize that move. You feel productive, right? Like
Yeah.
you're being nice and communicative.
No, totally. A little rush of, I did things today. But the outcome. She guaranteed herself a generic, safe presentation later that day. She completely sidestepped the risk of getting uncomfortable feedback, or maybe having one of those brilliant ideas flop.
And the essay's analysis suggests that doing that consistently, well, it has big consequences.
Yeah.
You end up building an entire career on essentially dodging the important, difficult work, just piling up busy work.
Precisely. Real growth. The kind that truly makes people stand out, it only starts when you're willing to step outside that comfort zone. When you decide to tackle the tough, intellectual, maybe even emotional work that, frankly, almost everyone else is trying hard to avoid.
Okay, so that's about the risk of taking action. What about the risk of sharing our actual output, our ideas? The original essay points to this huge source of waste in workplaces. Calls it the big waste.
Yeah, the big waste. It's all those potentially brilliant, maybe even transformative ideas that are just sitting there, stuck inside people's heads. Why? Because they feel incomplete or a bit risky or just not ready yet.
That fear of the imperfect idea, so potential breakthroughs just fizzle out.
They stagnate. That's the harsh truth laid out. Ideas don't get better just brewing in your mind. They actually get stale. They need interaction. They need oxygen to evolve.
And I like the analogy they used for that. It was really memorable. An idea is like an apple.
Exactly, like an apple. It either gets eaten, shared, savored, digested by others, or it just rots away sitting there. Ideas need that air, that contact with the real world, that feedback to actually grow into something useful.
So the implication for getting ahead then, it's kind of counterintuitive.
It really is. The people who accelerate their careers, who genuinely pull ahead, they aren't always the ones with the absolute best initial idea, perfectly formed. Often, they're the ones brave enough to share their half-formed thoughts, their rough drafts.
Because they understand the feedback is the accelerator, not something to dread.
Precisely. They see interaction as the way to gain velocity, to let others help refine the idea in real time. It's not about having a perfect first draft. It's about getting something out there to react to.
Okay, so moving from sharing imperfect ideas, let's talk about owning mistakes. When things inevitably go wrong, that instinct is often to be, well, nice about it, isn't it?
Yeah, the default is often apologize quietly, fix it quickly behind the scenes, hope nobody really notices the full extent of the screw-up, keep it contained.
But the essay argues that this niceness is actually harmful.
Actively detrimental is how it's put. Because hiding the mistake, even partially, is like creating what they call a hidden infection. It might seem okay on the surface, maybe the immediate symptom is gone, but the underlying cause, the systemic reason why the mistake happened, that hasn't been exposed or fixed.
So you're just setting yourself up for it to happen again, probably bigger next time.
Guaranteed. A bigger, more painful relapse later on.
So what does real accountability look like then, if not just a quiet apology?
It demands clarity and directness, which almost by definition brings discomfort. You have to be really clear about what went wrong, no sugarcoating. Then you have to dig into why it happened, like the root cause, and then crucially, clearly state the specific steps being taken to fix the underlying system or process.
And that means having conversations that definitely feel awkward.
Absolutely. And it often requires admitting you don't know something or that you missed something, rather than trying to project this image of competence you don't actually have in that moment.
Okay, but hang on. In a lot of places, admitting I don't know or I need help can feel like, well, showing weakness.
Right.
How do you square that vulnerability with needing to seem capable?
That's a really fair question, and it ties into what genuine confidence looks like, which we can get to. But specifically about mistakes, the essay's point is that pretending you know when you don't, that just makes the problem worse. You end up making bad decisions based on shaky ground. Real confidence, maybe paradoxically, includes being willing to look momentarily unsure to get to the right long-term answer. Admitting ignorance is step one to fixing the system. It's not a character flaw.
And this idea of painful clarity. It doesn't just apply to our own mistakes, does it? We do the same thing with other people's performance.
No, absolutely. That same damaging niceness. We avoid giving difficult, clear, specific feedback because we don't want to feel uncomfortable or we don't want them to feel bad in the moment. But by doing that, by choosing niceness over clarity, we actually prevent them from seeing what they need to see to improve. We rob them of the chance to grow.
So, connecting this back to the team, the most important work might not be the big, flashy project launch. It might be these smaller, much less glamorous, what did the essay call them? Cleanup conversations.
Yeah, cleanup conversations. The small, sometimes terrifying tasks that need maximum emotional courage. Not technical skill, but courage.
And the examples they gave really hit home, like telling a top technical person that their attitude is actually disruptive and rude in meetings. That's hard.
Really hard. Or sitting down with someone who's struggling, maybe a nice person you like, and clearly laying out exactly where their work isn't meeting the standard and what needs to change. No ambiguity.
And the essay frames this kind of work as where real leadership happens.
Exactly. Celebrating wins is easy. Anyone can do that. But seeing something that's wrong, a behavior, a recurring issue, a performance gap, and then choosing to step in and address it, even though it's uncomfortable, that's leadership. And when you see something that needs addressing and you avoid it, the essay delivers this, well, pretty devastating verdict. You're not being nice, you're being selfish.
Selfish. Wow. Why selfish?
Because you're consciously choosing your own immediate comfort, your desire to avoid maybe a 15-minute awkward chat over the long-term health and performance of the team, or the project, or that individual's growth. Think about it. That rude high performer, they might be driving away other good people, the struggling team member. They need that clear data to have any chance of improving. Your comfort comes at their expense.
That really reframes it. And it makes sense when you think about the best bosses or mentors you've had, right?
Invariably, the best ones were always willing to have those tough conversations, the ones that maybe stung a little at the time, but you knew came from a place of wanting you to get better. They chose your growth over their own ease. They created discomfort for you as an investment in you.
Okay, let's flip it. What about being on the receiving end of that discomfort? Handling criticism. The essay calls feedback a mirror.
Right, a mirror. And most people's instinct when they get criticism is defensiveness. They treat it like a personal attack. But the essay argues it's actually incredibly valuable data. External data you literally cannot get any other way.
You can't see the label from inside the jar kind of thing.
Exactly. You can't see yourself the way others do. So if someone tells you your presentations are hard to follow, that's not necessarily a judgment on your intelligence. It's data about how your communication lands. If people say you seem impatient in meetings, that's critical data about your impact on the team dynamic, on psychological safety maybe.
So how do people who learn fast process this data differently? Because, like you said, the natural reaction is, no, I'm not, or you misunderstood.
The fast learners, according to the essay, treat feedback almost like valuable market research on themselves. They manage to hear it without immediately shutting down emotionally. Their first instinct isn't defense, it's curiosity. They ask follow-up questions. Okay, interesting. Can you give me a specific example of when I seemed impatient? Or help me understand, what would a better outcome have looked like in that situation?
They're mining it for actionable insight, not just taking it as a verdict.
Exactly. They use criticism to get smarter, not just to protect their ego. And importantly, even if the criticism feels unfair or maybe objectively is partly wrong, there's still usually something valuable there.
Like what?
It still tells you something about how you're being perceived, or maybe it reveals an expectation someone has that you weren't aware of. Even wrong feedback is data about the environment you're operating in.
Okay, this ability to take in external data without, melting down, that seems connected to confidence, which brings us to the idea of true versus fake confidence.
Right. We've all seen fake confidence, yeah. It's often loud. It needs constant validation, constant proof. It's defensive. And it carefully avoids situations where it might actually be tested and found wanting. It's a confidence built entirely on protection.
So what's the alternative? What does real confidence look like?
Real confidence, the essay suggests, is usually quieter. It doesn't need to shout or boast because it's built on actual competence, competence that's been earned and tested through experience. And crucially, it's forged by exposure to difficulty, by being willing to risk looking bad sometimes. It's built on exposure, not protection.
Which loops back to what you said earlier about admitting ignorance, the litmus test.
That's the one. Genuinely confident people are often the quickest to say, I don't know the answer to that, or I need to learn more about this. They understand that feeling stupid is just a temporary state on the road to learning something new. They're secure enough overall that they don't fear that momentary vulnerability. They see ignorance as the starting line for knowledge, not something shameful.
Whereas the mass of people maybe try to build confidence by avoiding situations where they might look bad.
Exactly. Creating this fragile bubble of fake confidence that just shatters under real pressure. Real confidence comes from doing hard things, acknowledging the inevitable setbacks, learning your actual limits and capabilities. It's fundamentally grounded in being comfortable with discomfort.
So if we pull all these threads together, sharing ideas before they're perfect, having those tough cleanup conversations, owning mistakes publicly, seeking out hard feedback, the common denominator is making an intentional choice for discomfort.
Yeah, that's the core message to internalize from the original essay, I think. Discomfort isn't always a warning sign to back off. Very often, maybe even most often when you're trying to grow, that feeling of discomfort is actually a sign that you're doing something important, something meaningful.
The path to getting better faster. It runs straight through that awkward, vulnerable, maybe even slightly scary feeling. It means choosing action over waiting for perfection.
Choosing clarity over just being superficially nice.
And ultimately, choosing growth over comfort.
And here's the challenge the essay implicitly leaves you with. Look around. Most people will spend their entire careers actively avoiding this necessary discomfort. They'll play it safe, they'll stay quiet, and as a result, they'll stay stuck. That uncomfortable path, it's really the only path if you genuinely want to accelerate your learning and, frankly, outperform the people around you. It's a choice.